Good afternoon. Good. Hello, everybody. I'm trying to figure out how to make my head smaller. There we go. All right. Welcome to confirmation session number 11. And today we are going to be looking at the last part of Luke chapter 15. We're going to be looking at the parable of the prodigal son, which is probably one of the most famous of the parables. So with this, the prodigal son, a lot of times we think we know what everything means, what is being gotten at. But even if you've never heard of it before, listen carefully to what's going on, and I'll read it in a way, and we'll kind of break everything down. So we'll see where this story is leading us, where this story is guiding us as we follow Christ. Then Jesus said, there was a man who had two sons. The younger of them said to his father, Father, give me a share of the property that will belong to me. So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all that he had and traveled to a distant country, and there he squandered his property in dissolute living. All right. Here we have a story that we might not kind of get at first. But in Jesus' day, if you asked for your share of the inheritance, you were essentially telling your father that he was as good as dead to you. So that's what's being said. It's like, you're dead to me, Father. And then he just takes off and he squanders it all on dissolute living. And nobody really knows for sure. A lot of people assume that it's on illegal stuff, whatever. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's just a carefree lifestyle. He wastes his money. It goes fast. It goes incredibly fast. His money does. A lot of times we get a large sum of money, especially when we're younger, and we think that, oh, wow, this money will never run out. But it does. And obviously this son is fairly young. He squanders everything. So he's lost everything, and then all of a sudden it goes from bad to worse for him. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout the country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired hands have bread enough to spare, but here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands. All right. So to make matters worse, he's run out of money, and there's an economic crisis in the country that he's living in. There's a famine. Things are desperate, and he gets a job tending pigs and living with the pigs. Now, this is not an ideal job at all. And in fact, it's one of those things that it seems like the pigs are being fed better than he is. So it's one of those things that he's thinking to himself. And then there's a phrase in there, and I want you to underline it, he came to himself. It's in verse 17. When he came to himself, that's when all of a sudden he had a realization, and his mind started hatching an idea. And that idea was this. He said, all right, my father has hired hands who I know eat better than I am right now. I'll just go back home and say, you know what? I've messed up. I'm no longer even worthy to be called your son. Don't even consider me your son. Don't give me the benefits of being your son. I've lost that. I've blown it. But take me on as one of your hired hands. That's his plan of earning his way back into his father's good graces. So he's going up and he heads home. So he set off and went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. And he ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But his father said to his slaves, quickly bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet, and get the fatted calf and kill it. And let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. Wow. That is the good news for us. Because the son had a plan of earning back his father's good graces. He had a plan of earning back everything. But his father wouldn't even let him start the plan. Doesn't even hear of it. He just comes and runs and puts his arms around him and accepts him back. No strings attached. He has returned to the father. The father accepts him back. No strings attached. That is good news. How do we know he accepts him back as a son? Well, he puts the best robe on him. He puts a ring on his finger, and that ring was likely a signet ring, which was the family ring. You didn't wear it unless you were a part of the family. And now he is once again part of the family again, even though he told his father, you're as good as dead to me before he left. His father still welcomes him back. There's a lesson in that for us. That there is nowhere we can go, that our Heavenly Father will not welcome us back in, no strings attached. We can think of elaborate plans of maybe earning God's love, but He won't even hear of it. Return to God. Know that He accepts you as you are. There might be some trouble too. And this isn't where the story ends. The trouble comes with the older brother. Now his elder son was in the field, and when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. He called one of the slaves and asked what was going on. He replied, your brother has come and your father has killed the fatted calf because he got him back safe and sound. Then he became angry and refused to go. His father came out and began to plead with him. But he answered his father, listen, for all of these years I have been working like a slave for you, and I've never disobeyed your command, yet you have never given me even a young goat so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours comes back, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you kill the fatted calf for him. Then the father said to him, son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found. So there is a sticking point. It's the older brother, the one who always does the right thing. Always does the right thing. And you would think it's common sense. If you always do the right thing, you should maybe get a little bit more and get maybe favored status. That's not how it works with God. God's love is equal for all of us. There is no earning extra favor with God, just the benefits of knowing you live in God's grace. Sometimes we do play the role, we ourselves, of that older father and think it's not fair. It's just not fair. But God says it is just. And all of you are my beloved children. And it may not look like it's fair, but you all get an equal share of my love and my grace and salvation. Live in that. Now, you might think it's just one of those things like, well, we can go off and do whatever we want, like the prodigal son. But notice his life without his connection to his family. It might have been okay for a while, but remember where he ends up. He ends up feeding the pigs and starving, and the pigs are being fed better than he is. He's not living in his father's house, his grace. He's outside of that. He's turned his back on his father. So why would we do that? When we can have this daily connection and the daily reminder that we are living in God's grace. And may that grace shape us to live lives that reflect that grace and that goodness. All right, so the questions. 1, when the youngest son asked his father for his money, what was he really saying about his father in their relationship? All right. Well, question number 1, what, by asking for the money, what was the son actually saying about his relationship with his dad? Number 2, the son is where when he comes to himself, when he realizes, when he comes up with a plan of earning his father's good graces, where is he at? 3, does the father let him share the plan? And 2, what does the father do when he sees his son? Last question. What upsets the older son? Those are the questions. Have an absolutely wonderful rest of the day.